Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I don't know, I might do this as my current events because this is kind of a current event. I'll wait and see if I want to do another current events later or if we want to just count this as one of my two informatives. But some people are asking me, hey Jason, what do you think about the vertical diet? Now I've covered this in the past, but it is getting more popular. It's been put in magazines and things like that this year. It is becoming almost a fad diet for athletes and active people. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. Because we need to talk about it. And people need to understand, all right, so that people know where this is coming from and why it seems to work. This is coming from Stan Efferding. Hopefully you guys know who he is. If you don't, guys, an IFBB pro bodybuilder and a world record holding powerlifter in a heavier weight class. This diet isn't really particularly special. I'm just going to throw that out there. If people don't understand what it is, it's mostly steak, white rice, vegetables, bit of Greek yogurt, stuff like that, right? That's basically what it is. Now, hopefully that's not revolutionary to anyone. I mean, steak and rice for strength athletes, that's not exactly a new concept. But what he touts it as is, again, lower volume, low bloat, low gas foods, right? This is for gaining muscle or technically recompositioning. And what people need to understand, most of the people that work with this are heavily enhanced athletes. And from that perspective, is a diet like this something that someone could use to really bulk up, even make lean gains who is heavily enhanced? Absolutely. And what people need to understand, this diet is intended for people who have enormous amounts of workload in their training. This is not a diet that the average person is going to necessarily easily lose body fat on. Now, can you lose body fat on steak, white rice, and vegetables? Absolutely. If you create a caloric deficit, no doubt about it. And for maybe the really morbidly obese American, this might actually be an improvement and they might lose weight on it compared to their standard diet of what they're eating right now. And yeah, I mean, controlling the white rice portions would allow for that. But essentially what you have is a diet that's very easy to consume large amounts of relatively clean calories on. That's the whole point. Now people say white rice is clean. Yeah, of course it is. It's just starchy. It's not like it's full of fructose, full of saturated fat, refined sugars. You know, I mean, it's just a starchy carb. And let's be honest here. Obesity is not common in countries where white rice is a staple food. I mean, that's total BS that people have who are scared of insulin response and everything of food, which is the most absurd hypothesis you're ever going to see. The insulin obesity hypothesis has been flat rejected. We know it's not true. Plenty of people out there are very, very lean who eat white rice every day, right? All around the world. White rice is not what you would think of as a particularly fattening food. But for some people, it could be. It could be, depending upon the total composition of their diet. But you're throwing in, you know, red meat in there with it every day. For some people, yeah, this is not going to be really a weight loss diet. But the idea is that what it lets you do is pack down enormous amounts of calories, enormous amounts of nutrients, because it doesn't cause bloating and you're not sitting around eating junk food to do it either. And that's the whole point. The white rice is a fantastic fuel source for athletes. It doesn't cause bloating and gas, and he has you avoiding gassy foods that cause bloating in the GI tract because that could limit food intake. Now you guys are seeing where I'm going with this. This is a valuable tool as a diet for people who need to eat really, really high calories, but are still concerned with body composition. But what people need to understand, this is not necessarily what the average person should be following who's seeking to be very lean, maintain a certain body weight. Maybe not your best choice. Again, unless drugs and things come into the mix. But why is it going to be successful? Why is it successful? Because it's a food elimination diet. You are getting the overwhelming majority of your calories from two foods every day, right? Stuff that you can control the portions, you can easily track. It's harder to track total intake and control it when you have a really varied diet, right? Now, we can argue that a varied diet is better for overall health. A varied diet's great for health, but for people who need to perfectly control food intake, something like this works because dry rice You can use the same measurements over and over and over. That's going to be your staple calorie on a diet like this. The white rice is going to be probably half or more of your calories at any given time. You can measure it perfectly with a cup, and because you're not dealing with the post-measured wet version, the cup is going to give you a very, very close measurement. You can be very consistent with your main caloric control. Same thing, if you're picking similar cuts of meats where you know the fat percentage and you're just eating the same amount of meat every day, you've determined you need X amount of protein from the red meat, from the steak. Yeah, you can eat that same amount every day and you can totally control your caloric intake, either to keep it where it's at or increase it or reduce it slightly based upon the volume of the white rice. And then the veggies and everything don't contribute that much. Same thing, Greek yogurt, just again, just a protein source. As long as you stay consistent with that, a diet like this allows for very, very, very easy control of caloric consistency, dietary maintenance, dietary adherence, things like that. That's why it works. And they're relatively good tasting food. It's easy to make white rice taste good. It's easy to make steak taste good. So you're not necessarily going to always get bored of it, but it does allow for perfect control. But people need to understand this is still a food elimination diet. And the other thing is that, I mean, eating red meat every single day, eating large portions of red meat every single day probably isn't your ideal choice for health. Now, the upside, a diet like this could eliminate a lot of supplements and stuff. Someone who's eating 2 pounds of steak every day will probably not see any benefit from a creatine supplement. They will probably not see any benefit from a protein shake because their protein intake is going to be so high already with their other foods. Same thing, people worried about pre-workout, post-workout, carb drinks, all that stuff. It becomes nonsense because you're pounding down white rice all day. Your glucose and glycogen is controlled. You control your energy on that. So, I mean, it would allow for basically removing a lot of supplements and other stuff from your diet in theory that a lot of people think they need. But overall, from a ideal diet perspective, it's not really an ideal diet. But I mean, for a serious athlete, can I see why it would work and why they would be raving about the success? Of course. Because you're eating a large amount of consistent protein. You have perfect portion control by, again, just measuring your white rice every day. I mean, that's nothing revolutionary there, guys. People have been doing that for a long time before this diet. And again, just dietary adherence. It will allow strict control over your intake so that you can ensure a general upward trend in your calories as your performance goes up, your work capacity goes up, your muscle mass goes up, your overall energy turnover goes up, and it would allow you to perfectly control your weight changes, your weight gain, or even recomposition, and maintain a steady body weight if that's what you were trying to do on a diet like this as a very athletic person. It would allow for perfect control of that, and that's ultimately what it comes down to. It's not that this exact same thing couldn't be achieved with a different food. It's that it's foods that are very convenient and easy to cook. It's a diet because it's very, very low variety. It allows for very strict control of your caloric intake that's easily measured, easily tracked. And then the other stuff you're throwing in for dietary variety on the vegetables and things like that, and even the Greek yogurt, they're not particularly calorically dense. So they're not going to really change your overall intake that much depending on how much of those you're eating. So you can kind of mix and match those and throw them around just for the extra micronutrients. So from an athletic perspective, it will absolutely work. There's no reason it wouldn't work. A lot of that, again, is not necessarily a new concept because, again, it just allows for control. But at the end of the day, guys, this is a low variety food elimination diet. It's essentially what it is because it's trying to eliminate both junk food and eliminate foods that would impede your ability to continue to eat the large amount of specific calories that a person needs every day. So, I mean, could I see a diet like this being perfect for maybe the hard gainer? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Would this diet be ideal for, I don't know, someone like me, voracious overeater who is now needing to maintain certain body weights and go lower? Probably not. Someone like me who's in their 40s, history of heart disease in their family, probably not. I wouldn't personally be using this diet at this point for myself. I've experimented with stuff similar to this, but ultimately probably not the best choice for someone like me. So people need to remember at the end of the day, this is not necessarily the diet I would recommend for anyone out there who's chasing perfect health. I mean, if health and fitness is your overall goal, this is probably not the ideal diet. Could something like this be a great control diet for someone who needs to have strict control as a serious athlete, particularly in a sport that requires a large amount of muscle mass? Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's where it needs to shine. But hopefully it doesn't become a fad diet that's thrown out there into the community. Now, granted, is it better than a lot of the fad diets that are out there, like keto diets and everything else? Yeah. So, I mean, it would be a step up from a lot of that in regards to that. But, again, at the end of the day, still a diet pretty high in saturated fat. Still a diet that could have in the long term certain dietary deficiencies. And as far as the gut health elements of it, not necessarily true. You're eliminating a lot of the foods that create much better gut health. So that end of it, from a nutritional perspective, I'm not buying. It's not going to give you ideal gut health. Again, this is not necessarily a diet that you should be following if your goal is any sort of ideal health. It is a diet that will allow strict control of weight gain, strict control of just kind of a certain amount of body composition, and just overall control of your body weight is what it's going to allow for, but not necessarily for weight loss, but for either maintenance or slow gain or fast gain, depending on specifically what you're trying to do in a phase. So again, this is a diet for serious athletes, not necessarily for the fitness enthusiast. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.